back to South African Prepper. So where to bug out for this specific video. So what I would like to do firstly, I would like to play you two sets of short videos that will show you what actually happened and occurred to the civilian population in Kabul the last 4 days when the Taliban actually entered into Kabul. Now, if you'll bear with me in this video, I will explain to you why it is extremely important to actually have a bug out plan and how to actually determine where your bug out location might be. Now, a lot of people think that having a bug out location where it suits you is the best plan of action. But in actual fact, the best place to bug out to is normally the safest place and not always the most convenient place. Please stay tuned and please like, share and subscribe.
برادران میدان معشر برای مردمی میدان معشر است. زندان پل چرخی کل مردم آزاد و تمراز.
I say all, welcome back to South African Prepper again. Okay, so the second part of this video is all about where to bug out to. So in practical terms, this is how we establish in South Africa how and where we should actually bug out to. So in the picture you'll see we have drawn, let's call this the province or the state we live in, it doesn't really matter. And these blocks are what we call, let's call them the major cities within that specific area. And obviously you have highways and byways connecting all of these cities towards each other as well. Now, how do you actually establish where to bug out to? So what you need to do firstly you need to have a look at where you live. So let's say we live in city A. Okay. The second thing that you need to establish is what is happening in firstly the closest proximity to where you live. And when we're talking about what's happening, we're talking about things like crime and violence and protest and riots and so forth. So what we have actually done as a prepping community, we have over the years made notes and we've actually diarized events that's happening in our immediate city and then we actually mark them. So let me give you a practical example. So we live in city A and for some reason there was a, let's call it a protest, and the protest happened there and they actually closed off the road. Okay, so we are marking it there. Inside of the city there was let's call it the protest again, and we marked it as well. In city A, for an example, there was let's say a riot and some looting happening in there, so we actually mark it. And what we do is we then mark all over the area or the closest vicinity. We then mark where different things happened. Okay, and over the years you can actually start to form an idea of what is happening in your province and in your state. So once you have determined where the hotspots are, let's call them hotspots, where the hotspots are, you can from there on determine where the safest area will be for you to actually bug out. So now, like you've seen in the videos that I've showed you about Kabul, you will see that most, in fact not all of the population of Kabul actually were fleeing from that specific situation. So that is why a bug out plan always needs to be part of your plan. Many people around the world, and preppers especially, think that they will stand strong at a certain point, or they will actually occupy a certain area. And with that comes a hell of a lot of responsibility, firstly towards the community members that will be with you in your groups, and secondly, once a city gets besieged like Kabul, all services actually stop. So it becomes extremely difficult to survive within these cities, wherever you live in the world. Okay, so once you've established all of the hotspots, and we have indicated the hotspots on this example map with little circles, you then need to decide which area closest to you is actually the least affected with whatever incidences that you're focusing on. So where it will be the safest, where you will find, let's say, the least incidences over the last couple of years. So again, for an example, let's use this as we have identified this specific area as an example as the safest area. So what needs to happen next is you actually need to get from your city, in this case city A, to your safe zone. Okay, now as you can see along the routes, the main routes, there are a lot of incidences that happened the last couple of years, and we would like to actually miss all of that nonsense going on, because at the end of the day our strategy is to survive what is happening. So the next step that you need to do is you actually need to find a way around all of this nonsense that's happening and that has happened before. You need to find a safe route, okay, to your safe zone. So this is where your back roads actually comes in, and this is where your scouting before the shit hits the fan scenario happens needs to happen. So for an example, again, we'll use these lines, and let's say we have plotted a route that is the safest for us around all of the nonsense to our safe zone. Okay, so part of prepping and planning is that you actually need to have an exit road and exit strategies as well, and preferably you would like to miss all of the hotspots in the surrounding areas to eventually get to your safe zone. Okay, now what's also very important is that you need to make sure that you know how far, so we can write here in South Africa it's kilometers or miles. Okay, you need to make sure that you know how far you're going to be traveling to your safe zone, and you actually need to make provision. Maybe let's say we have a layover or a stopover here for the night, okay, and you need to make sure that that is also essentially a safe zone. So in this scenario, that is quite a hot spot like we've marked before, so your first layover might be too close to that, so you'll probably have to maybe move that safe zone maybe a little bit inwards, but it all depends on your planning, where you are, and your surrounding areas. So let's quickly create another scenario. So you're living in city A, that is your safe zone or layover for the night, and then that is supposed to be your safe zone. So let's say in the meantime this whole area you identified as a hotspot, okay, you need to actually have a route B and a route C. So in this case, let's say we're going to run this route around here, okay, we're going to run it all the way around all of the nonsense to eventually get to our safe zone, and then we have a layover or a plan B route. And you can do exactly the same if you have a, let's call it a plan C route. Let's say you will then miss all of that nonsense, and that is route C. And you actually need to know all of the routes. You need to know what you can find on these different routes. What is there fuel stations? Are there shops? Is there any government installations that you would like to miss? Is there any roadblocks that you might expect on these different routes? And that is essentially how we in South Africa plan a bug out. And like I said in the video that I showed you about Kabul, every prepper does need, it is necessity to have a bug out plan with bug out routes.